So in this video, let us discuss about employee separations. So what is meant by employee separation? What are the different ways of having this employee separations we shall discuss. So basically, when this employee separation takes place, in simple terms, when his service agreement with the organization comes to an end, then what happens? Employee will leave the organization. This is nothing but employee separation. He is separating from the company. So it could be due to various reasons. It could be due to resignation. It could be due to the retirement, due to the death of an employee, due to retrenchment, layoff, dismissal, and suspension. So let us discuss to a certain extent in detail what are each of these terms represent. In a very simple manner we should understand. Never try to by heart these concepts. Okay. So what is resignation? Everyone knows what is resignation. So it is a voluntary separation initiated by the employee himself. Now if I am an employee in an organization, due to some reason, maybe due to the ill health or marriage or pregnancy for ladies, okay, then better opportunities in other organizations, the employee may submit the resignation to his employer. That means he is interested to get separated from the company for reasons what he feels as right. But sometimes what happens is employee may be asked to resign as an alternative to termination. So instead of terminating is like a disciplinary action, you can say. Instead of doing that, in some cases, the management may direct the employee. So instead of the management terminating the employee, you submit the resignation and go. So that his, the image in the society will not be lost. So when it is terminated, openly it becomes, the news. Everyone will come to know. So he may find it difficult to get job elsewhere because he is a terminated employee. So the employer may ask him, you submit the resignation and go. This happens quite common in usually the higher positions in any of the organization. Basically, it is a compulsory resignation initiated by the employer, not the employee, employer. Okay. So there are two ways to understand this. Now, some resignations, it may help the organization to rectify the mistakes in hiring. So I told you earlier, it's human beings who are involved in this process. So human error may happen. Sometimes the person whom you have hired may not fit to the system. So the fresh talent is required from outside. Okay, so resignations will enable us to get another person who may be good also most of the time. But one thing the employer should ensure that excess turnover is very expensive and it costs. Cost in the sense you have to start the first recruitment process, right? So recruitment, selection, training, all those things are time consuming and money consuming, energy consuming. So all those things has to be taken care of. So HR department has a major role here. The HR department should try to understand the real cause of resignation so that suitable actions can be taken to prevent the avoidable resignations. So one such method to understand why the employee is leaving is to conduct an exit interview. This should be conducted by a senior person from the HR department, or sometimes the employer he himself may conduct if it is a small organization. And employees should be given assurance that all his statements will be maintained strictly confidential. And the purpose of this exercise only to improve the organization's culture. So when he is leaving, he may be very frank because you don't have to fear. Already he has made up his mind to move out of the organization. So he will be very open. He may explain clearly what is the cause of the resignation. Okay. So the interviewer should be very much sympathetic and you should have patience to listen to this employee who has submitted his resignation. So patience and sympathetic behavior is very, very essential. Then also, by this exit interview, the HR manager or whatever, the person who is conducting this, he will come to know the exact reason for the resignation, and he has to also ensure that the employee has fully handed over all his responsibilities to someone else. Okay, so finally, what is going to happen? Present the employee with this final check and wish him good luck. Anyway, he has made up his mind to go. It could be good for him and sometimes good for the institution also. But human relations should not get spoiled. So he should not be, shouted and ill-treated when he resigns. No, every individual has to be respected. Next is about the retirement. So retirement is one of the main cause of separation of employee from the organization. And there are three kinds. One is compulsory retirement. So, every employee must retire after attaining a specified age. In the government sector, usually it is 58 years. In some cases, it is 60 years. And in private, it could be, some private will stick on to the government rules, but some may be a little bit more flexible. They may give up to 62 or 65, some even up to 70 also, because private organizations, they can do that. Whatever they feel, if the person is very much essential, if it is very much loyal, the employer may extend his services. Okay, it depends on the company policy. Second one is premature retirement. So even before attaining his age of superannuation, maybe due to the bad health or physical disability or family issues or whatever may be, he may submit his resignation. Okay, or he may feel that he has to retire before attaining the age of superannuation, and he gets the full benefit of retirement provided the management allows premature retirement. Every organization may not have this facility. Next is about the voluntary retirement. So what is this voluntary retirement? When an organization wants to cut down its operations to close forever, it may give an option to its employees with certain minimum service to take up this voluntary retirement. But this is in return to a lump sum settlement. So this type of retirement is also called as a golden handshake. Okay, so these are the three types of retirement: compulsory retirement, premature retirement, and voluntary retirement. Next, let us see what is meant by layoff. So layoff is basically a temporary removal of an employee from the payroll of the company due to circumstances which may be beyond the control of the employer. Could be various reasons. Okay, so it may last for indefinite period also. Here the employee is not terminated, and at any time he may be called back in future to the same company. So the employer-employee relation is not coming to an end, but it is only suspended during the period of layoff. Basically, we can say it is a temporary denial of employment, not a permanent one. As I told you, anytime he can be called back. So what is the purpose of this layoff? The purpose is to reduce the financial burden of the organization when the human resources in the company cannot be utilized profitably. So maybe there is some financial issues due to the low sales or due to various reasons. So in such cases, instead of terminating, they may ask him to stay out for some time, but salary is not paid. Hope it is clear. Next one is about retrenchment. So this is a permanent termination of an employee's service for economic reasons. Every company will have those financial issues. So in such cases, what they do, they will terminate an employee, quoting the economic reasons. So retrenchment creates a sense of insecurity and also resentment among the staff. Why he is retrenched? Why not another person? or why I am retrenched, why not he? All those conflicts will arise. So employee should be retrenched without humiliation and creating any ill feeling, so that he does not speak unkindly of the employer. So if he is like harassed and sent out, then he may go out and speak very bad about the company and its employers, and the reputation of the company will get spoiled. So there is a legislation for this. There is something called as the Industrial Disputes Act 1947. It has given certain guidelines for retrenchment. So employee must be given 1 month's notice in writing, indicating the reasons for retrenchment, or if he has to be retrenched immediately, then 1 month's salary has to be paid. Okay, if notice is not given, that means he wants to be, the employer wants to terminate immediately or retrench immediately. So 1 month's salary he has to be given. The employee should be given. Then the employee must be paid a compensation equal to 15 days of wages for every completed year of service. That means if he has worked for 6 years, so for 1 year 15 days salary multiplied by 6 years. So that much amount has to be paid. And notice in the prescribed manner must be served. So usually the retrenchment will happen with the caption like last come first out. So worker employed last must be terminated first. Then retrenched workers must be given preference in future employment. So after some time, when the company has reached normalcy in terms of the financial issues, the same employees should be given preference while hiring. But establishments which employ more than 100 workers, in this case, not 1 month notice, in this case, 3 months notice has to be issued. Not only that, the permission from the government is required before retrenching an employee. There are various legislations. The Labor Department controls all this. So there will be Labor Commissioner, Assistant Labor Commissioner, the labor officers, the labor inspectors. So they all will come to know all these issues. So it has to be reported to them in a prescribed format and obtained permission. Next is about the dismissal. Now you know what is dismissal. In colleges also it happens, in schools also it happens, in organizations also it happens. So this is terminating the service of an employee in the form of punishment. Why punishment? For misconduct. What is misconduct? Misconduct means willful violation of rules and regulations. Or it could be due to unsatisfactory performance. So what is meant by unsatisfactory performance? Continuous failure of the employee to perform his job as per the requirement of the company. So the company feels that he is not improving even after several warnings, then the last option is to dismiss. So this misconduct may include indiscipline, insubordination, that means refusal to obey the orders from his superiors, and dishonesty. So dismissal is a drastic step actually and should be resorted with the utmost care. So it should be supported by just and sufficient cause. It is the last step after all attempts to rescue the employee has failed. Only then it should be a last. It is not that first time he made some mistakes, immediately you dismiss him. No, he should be given a notice and he should be given a warning. So all this procedure has to be followed. And he has to be issued with the show cause notice mentioning that why disciplinary action cannot be initiated against him. The employee should give it in writing to the employer. Then there is a procedure for dismissal. So first is to conduct preliminary inquiry. Second is issuing of charge sheets. Third is appointment of a disciplinary or inquiry committee or authorities. Next is conducting detailed inquiry. Then passing orders of termination as dismissal, and hearing and disposal of appeals. So these are the steps that has to be followed during dismissal. Coming to the last one is about the suspension. This also happen in common in all the organizations for violating the organization's policy. So when this suspension happens, when a manager or a supervisor feels that an employee has violated the policy and for which it has to be punished. So one such punishment is suspension. Then while suspending, you have to take care that when he is suspended, his job who will do? So that has to be properly taken care. It's because of this suspension, the company's work environment or its normal working should not be affected. So actually suspension hurts the employee because he will have no work during the suspension, right? And he will not be paid. But some suspensions are there with pay, or he may challenge the suspension and subsequently the decision is overturned in which he will be paid. So this is all in this video. Now coming to some of the questions, as you know, there will be 2-mark questions, 8-mark questions and 16-mark questions like that. So I've given few questions here. You can go through this, like what is retrenchment, then explain employee separation and types of separation, write a note on employee separation, explain different modes of employee separation, give the meaning of premature retirement, give the meaning of dismissal. So some examples, these are the questions which were asked in the previous examination. So such examples as a sample is only given. It doesn't mean that only these questions are to be asked. Okay, so see you in my next video. Till then, bye, take care.